iHeart, and on Odyssey. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson. America First with Sebastian Gorka, today at 3, right before Sean Thompson at 4 on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. I'm watching all this coverage of the submersible that's stuck in the Titanic, apparently. And I'm thinking, why don't they get those guys who rescued that Thai boys soccer team from the cave? You know?
In South America, yeah, that's right. I remember that.
South America, not...
No, it was in Thailand. It was in Thailand.
Thailand's not in South America.
Sorry.
Unless it's been relocated.
No. But there were some Chilean miners who were stuck, too, one time, and they got them out. But
sure.
No, it's just, I just would never, even if you paid me $10 million, would never get in one of those tubes with 4 other people and then go, no. They went the depth of 2 Grand Canyons. So, I mean, they have one more day of oxygen left, so.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. Maybe Viggo Mortensen, Joel Edgerton, those guys can go down. You know, did you see 13 Lives?
I did not see 13 Lives.
That's the movie about the Thai cave rescue. I mean, there's a few movies. That was a good one, though.
I thought there's a different one.
All right, let's talk a little bit more about K through 12 education, since we were poring over the recommended summer reading list from Tony Hinsdale, District 181. That's all sort of soft leftist agitprop, you know, because you got to wean the kids on it in the primary grades. And most of these government school districts and a lot of private schools are doing their fair share of exactly that. But there are a couple of states that are going in the other direction. And this is brought to our attention by Professor Mark Bauerlein, professor of English at Emory University, senior editor at First Things, and author of The Dumbest Generation and The Dumbest Generation Grows Up. What happens after the dumbest generation grows up, we'll find out. Professor Bauerlein, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, good morning.
So when the dumbest generation grows up, well, then they get elected to office, and then they start producing generations even dumber than them. Is that sort of the life cycle?
You know, that could be the unfortunate slide. The dumbest generation I put as the millennials, and I actually thought that Gen Z was going to be a reaction against the millennials and their screen addictions and their political correctness and their scolding cancel culture. But what has happened actually in the last few years with the pandemic is that Gen Z looks like it may be in bigger trouble than the millennials. The NAEP scores came out just yesterday. And from 2020 to 2023, the NAEP scores are the reading and math national scores done by the federal government. And the math went down 8 points. It was the biggest drop in 50 years in so short a time. Reading went down 4 points. And that was, you know, a big part of the pandemic, putting kids in a room, putting them on a screen, telling them don't go outside, don't talk to anyone, just get online. And, of course, how many of those kids were online, supposed to be in class, but were playing Fortnite instead? And we see the drop. And what we need in the curriculum is a return to a lot of the old reading study habits that progressive education eliminated. And the big one, you know, you're talking about recently, this Wall Street Journal piece I had is about Arkansas and Georgia have put memorization and recitation of great poems, speeches, soliloquies, and plays back into the curriculum. Progressives hate it because it's rote memorization, because it preserves the past, and we're so much better than those old guys are. We're so much smarter and purer, and so, but they did it. We did it in Arkansas and Georgia. I was, you know, involved in this. It's a wonderful thing. We need to have kids more immersed in the great writings of the great tradition.
And that would help, but also when it comes to math, I mean, how did Common Core affect math? Because, you know, 2 + 2 = 4, but then they say explain why that is.
I know.
I mean, that was so goofy because I went to meeting after meeting about Common Core. Trying to get rid of it.
This explain. No. Have the kids do the calculations. Have them do their times tables so that it becomes automatic in their heads. It just becomes, you know, your basic exercise, and this deeper thinking, this critical examination of concepts and ideas having 12-year-olds do this absurd. And you notice people don't talk very much about Common Core anymore. They don't hail it because it has produced such disappointing results. But Dan and Amy, it is still very much active. It's very much a part of the curriculum.
Of course.
In many states. Florida, we got rid of Common Core in Florida. Georgia and Arkansas, yeah, this is different. And these are 3 red states, and I honestly do not understand why so many red states with solid Republican conservative governors are letting ed school professors still direct the standards and curricula for those states. Wake up, you guys. This is a huge influence. You want to know why the millennials are 2/3 Democrat? You want to know why Gen Z may be even worse? Look at the public schools and what you have allowed to happen there.
Absolutely. I mean, it was an interesting piece out of Oregon. A government school principal who lived in Central Oregon with her husband and their children, 3 children. She was adopted from Seoul, South Korea, grew up in Nebraska. She said her own public school experience was not all roses. Neither was her husband's in Texas. And after struggling with having little control over what she was so passionate about, this principal named Mandy Davis, who has a master's in education, instruction design, worked in both public and private schools, she's out. She's out. I couldn't be the change I wanted to be in our school system, but more so, I couldn't leave my children in it to suffer. So pulling up stakes, essentially going on to homeschool her 3 kids because, as she said, I want to raise thinkers.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just so somebody from in the system, both systems, public and private, background in education, all the credentials that,
right.
and here's her conclusion. So it's always interesting to hear from those inside the system and what they're seeing, those that are courageous enough to be honest.
The exodus from public schools is not completely made off of conservative traditionalist people, parents pulling their kids out. Liberal parents have had it too. They want good, solid education in math and reading and science and art, and they don't want to hear sex lessons, and they don't want to hear critical race theory nonsense. They don't want to hear tendentious politics and ideology thrown at their own kids. And people are moving. They're moving away. They are opening charter schools. The classical education private schools are exploding. It's still a small group, but it is growing very, very fast. The Catholic schools are seeing their enrollment numbers go up. A lot of those Catholic schools really aren't that great, but they're an option for people because they see, one of the things the pandemic famously did was parents would be in the room and they would start hearing the lessons. They'd hear the class discussions, and they would say to themselves, wait a minute, this is what is going on in the school. And they reacted. They pulled out. I mean, New York City has lost some like 300,000 public school students in the last few years. A lot of people moved out because of their kids. I don't want my kids to be part of this. And let's just hope that it keeps going. Let's hope that other states catch on and realize we have to go back to basics. We have to go back to the traditional forms of instruction. We've got to have kids read great books, know about ancient myths and Bible stories. We need to build their cultural literacy and stop acting like we're in the 21st century now. We don't need to worry about all that old stuff.
Yeah, but we have to do this in a way without using screens. Because, I mean, we're telling our kids, only be online or be, on your phone or your iPad for certain hours. And then COVID hit, and then it was all day, all the time. And now we got to get them back off of it.
Well, Amy, here's where I stand. In my comp classes, my freshman composition classes at Emory University, I often have students turn in their papers handwritten, preferably in cursive.
Oh, good for
and
you.
I think, well, it's a good thing for them to do. It slows them down. Mm-hmm. It makes them craft their sentences. When they're doing it by hand, they actually take a little more care with their word choice, with the transitions between sentences and paragraphs, instead of just going, on the keyboard. So I urge this, and actually we see cursive. Cursive was brought back in Georgia. Teaching cursive writing is very good for kids. For one thing, in cursive, it helps them learn their spelling. It helps dyslexia because when you write in cursive, you don't just write individual letters. You have to think about the next letter and the next letter because they all have to be connected. Third grade teachers will tell you cursive, very good for teaching spelling.
All right, I'm going to give you a little quiz, Professor. I'm going to turn the tables.
Oh, boy.
See if you can name this poem, and it has a relatively famous line, the portion I'll recite. So I think you probably get it. Shall life succeed in that it seems to fail? What I aspired to be and was not comforts me. A brute I might have been, but would not sink in the scale. Name that poem or poet.
Yeah,
What is this, Jeopardy?
You got me.
Well, here's the thing. So this is a poem I memorized, and this poet became my favorite poet when I was in high school and college. It's Robert Browning's Rabbi Ben Ezra.
Got it. I was going to say 19th century. It's one of the more great. Browning, one of the. You got me, Dan.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Good thing you're good thing you're tenured.
Oh my gosh!
But the point is, the point is, I remember that, and I can recite in Flanders Fields and other poems, and Shakespearean sonnets. And the point is, so I learned that in school and by reading. And I just want you to comment, because this is what we're really talking about in Georgia and Arkansas, about the importance of the spoken word and the ability to recite. It's not just to, put on airs. There's a point to it, because, and I'll give you the point that I take away, and please add or comment. The point is that because I remember that poem and other parts of poems, that was time I spent trying to understand what the poet was communicating. And so, for example, Rabbi Ben Ezra, is the top line is basically, our destiny is in God's hands. Okay, so now that's a big concept to think about. So the point is not to recite it to show off. It's to say that I put that poem, its meaning, its big ideas to memory. I thought about it. It's what that principal leaving to homeschool her kids said. I want my kids to grow up to be thinkers. And that, to me, is what things like doing things the old way, as you say, this is why they're so important.
Dan, your teacher did a wonderful thing. Your parents did a wonderful thing. You have poems memorized. You got the great lines, the great eloquence of the past. It's part of you. It's in your head. It's not just a homework assignment. It becomes part of your sensibility, and you've got that now. You can call upon those words. How wonderful it is to send kids out into the world with a few dozen of them. I mean, they know a lot of poems because they know songs.
Yeah, right.
And they should be able to get the poems as well, or the great lines from great speeches as well. And you're right. When we get a 17-year-old memorize a Browning dramatic monologue, or that the kid, first of all, he gets a lot better words than he's going to find on his Instagram feed. He also learns public speaking, right? Yep. Intonation, projection, emphasis, pitch, which is very good for teenagers. Also, it's what you said. You really have to understand those words. You have to become Robert Browning or one of his characters. You got to get out of your own adolescent ego and actually imagine the life, the experience of another human being. What a great thing for teenagers to do, right? So these are all the benefits. You just gave us proof of the value.
I know some Shel Silverstein poems.
Sure, Light in the Attic. Yeah, very good. Also,
where the sidewalk ends. I cannot go to school today, said the little pig, and I won't do that.
Yeah, I
remember that, and I love those books, Falling Up.
Oh yes,
Mark, you'll have to forgive her. She went to Iowa.
So, that's so rude.
That's she topped out.
I went to public school too.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
But it's great for the little kids too to memorize.
Yep.
These, Dr. Seuss, memorize that. One fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. I've got a lot of that. It's great. It's great to have, the rhythm. Amy, I imagine you remember the pictures.
Oh yes.
Of the Silverstein as well. You see it on the page, and you carry that experience with you. You smile when you think of it. That's the joy that comes. I mean, there's a great joy with having memorized something. I see it when students go back to their seats. They struggle when they present it to the class, but when they return to their seats, their faces. It's not just relief. It's actually a feeling of accomplishment. I did it. I performed. I completed this. It was a tough assignment, and I did it. We want to give the kids self-esteem because of what they've done, because of their accomplishment, not just we're all wonderful.
You're making me want to transfer my son from Georgia Tech to Emory.
Yeah, well, at least he's in Georgia. That's the good news.
Yeah, that's good.
Professor,
That's very good.
Yeah,
That's good.
Professor Mark Bauerlein, professor of English at Emory, senior editor of First Things, author of both The Dumbest Generation and The Dumbest Generation Grows Up. Professor Bauerlein, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Everyone knows that crime is on the rise. It's imperative that law enforcement agents have the information they need to keep citizens safe and protect themselves as well. If you are a sworn law enforcement agent certified in the state of Illinois and working for an agency in Illinois, you might be interested in this announcement. Would you like to have an on-the-job decision-making